The old adage goes, you are what you eat. It makes us who we are from the inside out. Not so many years ago, people ate food that they grew from their garden or bought from their local farmer. Nutrients that fuel our bodies are housed in those foods. Can we maintain health with good nutrition alone? Which supplements are the best to take and why? Bev will attempt to clarify these issues in her audio-visual presentation entitled Whole Food Nutrition. All supplements are not created equally.
Which form of supplements are best? Well, really, humans, the way we're designed, we've been intended to get food or nutrients from food sources. So it would make sense that our body is set up from a chemical point of view to be able to absorb and utilize nutrients when they're in their whole food form. It's critical for the body to be able to use the nutrient the way it needs to. It's not just sort of there by default, but there is a need for these other things other than, say, the vitamin or the mineral that you need that helps to make you utilize it better. What I mean by utilization of food is that once it gets into the bloodstream, it also needs to get from the bloodstream through the receptors into the tissue, into the actual cell, okay? So the end absorption is not the end of the story. What it has to do is go from the bloodstream, be latched onto the receptors, and then get in to the system, into the cell. It's like if you put a letter into the mailbox without having a postal code. It'll have the person's name on it, and it might sort of float around for a while, but without the postal code, that letter really does not know where to go.
North American culture demands us to go, go, go all the time. More is expected of us at work and home than ever before. Most of our daily activities stimulate our automatic stress response. Once the stress response is triggered, our healing mechanisms are shut off. Sleep, digestion, and calm thinking is profoundly disrupted.
If we look at the role of symptoms in our body, symptoms are really a sign, a warning signal from our body that something's out of balance. It's going, hello, something's going on, I'm not feeling so great, you gotta fix me. And the key about symptoms is that you really want to look deeper into those constitutional areas to say what's wrong and how can we reverse it so that that symptom will go away. It's not as quick of a fix, but in the long run, it will bring the body back into balance so that the symptom will go away and you'll feel much better in the long run. So let's just look at hormonal therapy as a whole, all the endocrine organs and how they work in concert with each other. Estrogen and progesterone are very important parts of our overall hormonal health, especially in women. Estrogen does a multitude of things beyond just producing babies or producing our periods. So when that goes away, the ovaries aren't working anymore. What happens is that the adrenals are meant to pick up the slack and make estrogen and progesterone as well. So if we look at the adrenals and what it has to do now, it has to make a lot of things. It has to make adrenaline, it has to make cortisol, aldosterone, testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone. That's a lot of jobs. And if we have a history of our adrenals being under stress, the chances are that it's not going to be able to keep up the slack. And at the time of menopause, I'm finding that menopause is much worse if your adrenal health is not as good as it should be.
In the audio-visual presentation, Insulin Balance, Sweet Surrender, Bev will explain the connection between stress and insulin imbalance and provides tangible natural solutions to maintaining healthy insulin balance.
Today we'll talk about insulin balance, and I call it Sweet Surrender because people often surrender to their cravings, and we want to look at ways that people can reduce their cravings and look at the whole picture as far as endocrine balance. When you wake up in the morning, your insulin should be low because you haven't taken in any food yet. And after you eat, the insulin should be high because you've introduced glucose into your system by taking in carbohydrates and other food groups. So let's look at some symptoms of hypoglycemia. And the big one I find in menopause are night sweats. I like to separate out the differences between hot flushes. Do you get flushes during the day or do you get sweats at night? Sometimes people will say both, and that means we need to look at the reproductive system, the ovaries and how they're working, and we also need to check out insulin and how it's working as well, because night sweats are definitely a phenomena of not having enough glucose or hypoglycemia. Palpitations, anxiety, headaches, and just general weakness. And it makes sense that you have low energy because you don't have any glucose in your system.
Do you ever wonder where all of your energy went? Are you struggling to maintain a healthy weight even though you are conscious of what you eat? Lack of energy is the most common complaint seen by Bev in her natural medicine practice today. In the audiovisual presentation entitled Thyroid Dysfunction, No Get Up and Go, Bev explains how many factors such as diet regimes, stress, and overall hormonal imbalance can profoundly impact thyroid activity.
It controls the rate of energy production by the cells. So this is a really key part of what the thyroid does, that metabolism is really all the chemical reactions in your body. So the thyroid is the ruler of how quickly those chemical reactions occur and how many occur throughout the day, depending on which mode it's in. Now, when there's increased stress, the thyroid goes into what's called conservation mode. There's productivity mode where it's working very well and it's producing T4 and the liver's producing this enzyme to effectively make T3. But once the thyroid goes into conservation mode, what happens from there is that it starts to decrease metabolism and lowers temperature. It does this because cellular metabolism, reactions that go on in the cells, and temperature are not critical to survival. Okay? So if we look at that stress response, everything we think about has to be, do we really need that to survive? And it doesn't matter if you're cold when you're running away from that axe murder, because you'll get over it. I mean, the whole idea of sympathetic response is that it's going to be short term. The fact of the matter is that our sympathetic response has been stuck on, and our bodies are having to continually cope with that reality.